maybe call it what now?
I like
And it's almost like, okay, so this episode is called What Now because it's almost like we talked through sort of the spiritual awakening, the process that you potentially will go through during this time. But what now? What do you do? We haven't really given you guys practical tools to
yeah,
be able to navigate. So this is sort of like what now? Like how to navigate.
I'm gonna learn a lot here because like I definitely feel first of all, I feel okay, so you told me you believe in like multiple spiritual awakenings. I'm definitely
Yeah.
feeling so far, so just my experience so far. I feel like my I had a karmic relationship. I mean,
Yeah.
ultimately, I feel like my separation from self is what prompted my spiritual awakening. But from being so far away from myself, I put myself, I made contact with that karmic relationship, which woke me up. Like, that's what kind of, it's like, okay, just so, I told you my story. I ended up at the crystal store. The rest is history. I
the
was really
rest is not history. It is the beginning of the rest of your life.
that is true. So I had my karmic relationship pre-awakening. I
Yeah.
had my spiritual awakening. Life
Yep.
was fucking good. Really, really good.
Yep.
Really no trials, no tribulations. And now I'm in this just probably for a few months now, just where all of my beliefs and program, everything's being challenged. I
Yeah.
feel like I'm losing, and I really haven't talked about this deeply, but I feel like I'm losing everything. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like everything that I've worked for is being taken away from me. Like I'm hanging on to everything like by a thread and not understanding like what am I supposed to do with this? Why is this happening? What am I being? And I keep getting that this is a trust thing, that I need to have an active faith moving towards the next phase of my life. Like, why are you clinging on to old when we have this new thing we've created for you? Like, you literally need to just step into it. Like, I'm aware, I'm getting that, but like, I can't even describe, Patty, like what is going on in my life right now. And I said I'd be transparent here. I'd be honest, I haven't been talking about it because it's just I'm still trying to understand like
Hmm.
what is happening. And I really feel like it comes down to just really challenging like everything that I believe in. And I thought that I thought that I evolved from that, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm realizing now how much I'm just really still stuck in my old self. Um, and I don't know, like it feels like I'm at the light. Like I feel like I can kind of, I get they show me like glimpses of where I'm headed. So I'm like, okay, it's kind of like the carrot dangling. So I'm like, okay, like even though I feel like I'm losing everything, I feel like I'm gaining a lot at the same time. Um, but it's just like, when am I gonna be out of this? You know?
I have a question. Do you feel like you're doing too much? And when I say that, the only reason I say that is because I feel like when I was sort of in that process of coming out of that dark tunnel,
Mhm.
I was doing so much. I was literally like, I hired a therapist, I hired a coach, I was literally journaling every day. I was trying to channel message every day. I was like literally doing so much to the point where I was getting confused at what I needed to do. Does that make sense? Like it's almost like you're going on social media and looking at all the messages that are coming through different spiritual teachers or spiritual people that you follow, and you're like, yes, that makes sense, that makes sense, oh my god, that makes sense, oh I need to do that, oh my god, I need to. And then you get to a point, look at you wait, wait.
Act like you know me.
No, you don't understand. Like as you were talking, I literally was like, that sounds familiar. I'm like, wait, I went through that. Literally, I did all the do's and did all the things. And I went to a point where I wasn't sleeping. I was going to work. I was coming home. I was on the train doing the do, but not fully understanding everything that was coming in, not fully understanding, because I felt like I needed to do all of it to be able to get out of the tunnel. Because, like, again, we're trying to control, right? We're trying to control the situation. You got the
Never,
message. You got the message that said, please trust, please trust. But then you're like, okay, I'm gonna trust you, but I'm gonna do it my way too. I'm gonna do the do. I'm gonna read, I'm gonna meditate, I'm gonna do all this stuff that everyone, I'm gonna take the courses, and um I'm gonna follow everything and everybody so that I can get as much information, as much message so that I can get out of here, right? And then, and I think I literally said this like maybe an hour ago when we were talking. I was like, remember how, like, in the beginning when we first became spiritually awake, there were rituals that we started to implement in our lives, like meditation, a journaling practice, or like little things, self-care. And literally the message I got was, go back to basics.
oh my God,
Forget
where
everything that you
I'm at
kind
right
of learned.
girl, I've never been, I mean, I listen to you. I've never been listening to you as hard as I'm listening right now because you just like woke up my spirit. This resonates so hard. I'm like, that's exactly what I'm
Yes.
doing. That is hilarious. That is exactly, I would say about
Yes.
3 weeks ago. That's the exact message I got. Go back to the basics. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And my coach, even this morning, she said, let's like, I want you to show me your schedule and let's see what we can like take out. Because she's like, I feel like, you're listening to your calling, but you're also like involved in like way too many things and you're like burning the candle at both ends. Searching, like just searching. And I'm like, I know they telling me I'm not trusting. I understand. But what you just said, Patty, that's exactly it. Like literally it went from searching so outside of myself and then catching me every time. Stop. Like we're here. Why are you like every spiritual person, every like channeler, every astrologer, every just like who has the answer? Who has the answer? What is my week going to be like? What is
Yeah.
my day going to? Oh my God, that's exactly what's happening. And then I got go back to the basics. I've been developing my new kind of spiritual practices. As I've been doing that, I've been having a lot of synchronicity lately, which
Yeah.
makes me feel good. But I feel like I'm navigating this thing. Like I don't feel like it's going to take me like 3 years to get out. Like maybe by the end of the only because I'm really like,
Listen, you're not as hard-headed as I was.
but I'm not like it's not a.
You're fine.
I know a relationship would be for me. This is really just like fighting myself. Like I said, fighting my
It's
personality.
your relationship with you.
Yeah, yeah. Which
Yeah, it's like it's a
hard.
long-term relationship with you, actually.
That's so okay, tell
Oh
me
my God,
more.
that's so.
You might be like the person that like helps me
Tell
speed
you more. I don't know.
tell
No,
me.
you're the one that's going to speed up your process.
I know, but
It's funny. I just was listening to you and I was like, wow, she sounds so familiar to me. That scenario sounds so familiar. And I was like, oh my God, I went through that. But yeah, I mean,
okay, so what happened after the spiritual practices?
wait, what happened? What do you mean? What? Say that again.
So
What
you were
happened after the spiritual practice?
saying, oh well, going back to the basics. What happened after going back to the basics?
Oh yeah, going back to the basics. And literally I stopped. There was probably a good 3 to 6 weeks that I got off social media.
Mm-hmm.
Not really cold turkey, but like, cold turkey enough
Mm-hmm.
that I wasn't, you know. And I went back to basics. I started to soul journal again. So soul journaling was actually the first thing I was in, one of the first things that I was introduced to tap in to kind of connect with soul. That was a huge part of my practice. And then meditation.
Mhm.
That was a huge part of my practice too. And really tuning in and just writing everything. There was I mean, I have journals. I literally have 10 years worth of journals on my bookshelf. And I started to write more. I started to literally, whenever I would feel something, or okay, so this is a great process. And I'm sure people do this and I don't know what it's called, but there's shadow work, but this is sort of the process. So I'll be having a conversation with someone. I'll get triggered, and one of two things happen. And I don't know if we talked about this. Um, I get triggered and I'm about to react. I either go down the path of reacting, knowing full well I'm reacting, but I just allow myself to react because it just needs to go out. And then after that, I sit down and I write it. I'm like, okay, I was triggered by this person. This was the conversation. Why was I triggered? And I'll go down, like, I literally will write it down, put an arrow, and really go step by step and say, okay, I was triggered because of X, Y, and Z. Why was I triggered? And I'll write down the reason why I was triggered. How did it feel? I felt really angry. What else did I feel? What other emotions did I have? Disappointment. Did I feel disappointment? Did I feel, whatever else? And I'll really go down the process. And the other piece of being triggered is you'll say something or someone will say something. I'll get triggered, be aware that I'm about to respond and go, you know what, hold on a second, and walk away and process it myself versus reacting, right? So that's sort of like some of the processes that I've learned to kind of incorporate while in the midst of a trigger of some sort of reactionary thing.
Yeah.
Um, right? Like, it's insane how when you're aware that you're being triggered and you actually allow yourself, you're almost like a third person looking at you being triggered and being like, this person is like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to do this. Why are you still talking?
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. Oh my God. Well, damn. I just feel that just felt so weird. Like, and it's just crazy, my financial coach, shout out to Nadine. She is such an amazing coach. She incorporates a lot of like spirituality into her coaching, but she asked me to watch this movie. It's on YouTube. It's called A Hero's Journey. Have you heard of it?
Oh yeah, Joseph Campbell.
Yeah.
Yep, a friend. That's so funny. Yeah, hero's journey.
It
Mm-hmm.
just just how we all have our hero's journey. And really, that's the beauty of like these podcasts and teachers and people who are out, you realize that you're just not alone.
I
Everybody.
just realized we're recording again, by the way. Because hi
Everybody
guys.
is going. Hey guys, everybody is
Hey
going
guys.
through their hero's journey, right? So it's not like that
Yeah. No,
surprising,
absolutely. We all do.
you know, like that, like, oh, that sounds so familiar, because we'll all find familiarity in each other's, story and
And
journey.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And like we are more connected than we are disconnected. We were just talking about the laws of the universe. Law of one, not the first law, but
Yeah.
law of oneness, not law number one, but the law of oneness. And that's what really it's all about. Like, we are all more connected. We are, and we are more alike than we are different, in the sense that we all go through this journey. Yeah. And the practical tools that we learn throughout will evolve and change as we go through that hero's journey, right?
Right.
Because when we first I feel like when we first kind of understand that there is more to this world than what we were taught, then things start to open up. We start to get introduced to certain things, and like, you know And I think we have the same in that, and you can talk about this more, like when we first started, it was sort of like the time where the law of attraction was the big thing to understand and to learn. And my gateway into all of the things that I do now was law of attraction. So um I feel like that was sort of similar, like your first process was that, correct?
Mhm. Yeah, I actually, one of the first programs that I got into somewhat shortly after my, spiritual awakening was Manifestation Babe with Catherine Zenkina, which is a program where, they kind of teach, she teaches you how to manifest, but also really digging into a lot of the like deep inner work that a lot of people don't really take the time to address. Um, love the program. It really sparked me to do that internal work. In fact, sparked me to do the internal work so much where I'm just like, not even worrying about manifestation right now. I'm just realizing just all of the inner work that needs to be done. And it really just opened up a whole nother journey for me. Mm.
It's interesting what we get introduced to and what we resonate with. So that word resonance didn't really come into my life until maybe a few years ago.
Mhm.
you know Again, there's so many things that came my way in the beginning, and I think the one thing that really helped me throughout this process was um that the soul journaling. And shout out to my spiritual coach Elisa Romeo, who wrote a book called Meet Your Soul. And that book was actually one of the things that really helped me. I mean, before that book, I wasn't lost. I was just kind of, where do I go now? What do I do now? Like, I started with journaling, gratitudes. I started with meditation. I started with um, believing that I brought my own happiness into my life, and started to kind of do those things. And what I do now is very different from what that was, because that was sort of like the gateway, right? It was like the gateway drug to all of this other stuff.
Yeah.
And every time that I learn something new, it doesn't mean that I don't believe in the things that I used to do. It's just that my level of understanding and my level of ritual and practices kind of elevated as I evolved and elevated.
Mhm.
But the one constant I will say throughout this journey was the soul journaling, because that's always sort of, it's always a coming back home to us. It's always a coming back home to us and
Mhm.
to our inner work.
Yeah.
And like, as much as we can go out and go to yoga and go to a meditation class and do all these programs, to your point earlier, it's all outside of us. We really have to just reel it back in sometimes. While those things help, and those things help us really understand and realize that there's so much more to this universe and so much more to learn, so much more to unlearn and relearn, it's really just, again, the inner voice and that intuition and that following of that inner knowing.
Yeah.
So your inner voice might say, no, you shouldn't do that program because it's just not aligned. But your ego might say, no, I want to freaking do that program, and I'm going to do that program. And then guess what? You do the program, you don't learn anything from it, and you're back, right back where? Back to you, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I think like I've definitely gotten to the place now where I'm not falling for the FOMO anymore because I got into this program right when we started to see this rise of coaches, which I've mentioned before, is a great thing. I'm all for it. But you got to check yourself because it can
I
become
am
an
all for it too.
overwhelming experience, especially when you're following, like, you have a group of people who are, following different coaches and they're telling you, oh, you got to check out this program, check out that. Next thing you know, you've
Yeah.
invested in 10 programs and you've integrated none. So, um,
That is a great point, by the way. That integration
mhm,
is a great point.
Yeah,
because we, again, to your point, we take programs, we absorb, we take information without integration and embodiment. It's just stuff that we know.
exactly. Even if you even know, because many people will just buy a program and then be like, oh darn, I don't have the time. A lot of programs are pre-recorded now, or there's like a
Yeah.
workbook or something you go into, so it's not live. And so you think, oh well, I'll just go and revisit it, and then you don't. I had to
Yeah.
tell myself, okay, no more programs right now. So I'm on a not a program strike, but I'm taking a break, and
Right.
I had to make a file of all the programs that I've invested in, and then decide like what is something that I want to take from each program, and I'm spending 30 days on each one, really trying to integrate. And
Mhm.
because I invested in that, I spent money on that. So and I
Yeah.
I did it for a reason. So I want to come out of it at least knowing something. So that's my goal right now. I also want to circle back to, you were saying something about our beliefs, and you were
Mhm.
saying
Yeah.
that not that I don't believe in that anymore, something along those lines. And I just want to bring awareness to, because this is something that I've been struggling with a little bit, but I feel like a lot of people feel the strong need, or feel like they can't change their mind. Like
Mm.
once I
Mm.
believe something, like that's my belief. And that's exactly what we're trying to evolve from. Um, I think it's important to bring awareness that it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to believe in something else. In fact, that's our whole goal here is to kind of
Yeah.
separate, from these beliefs that have been ingrained in us, and to just explore, and to open your mind, and whatever you feel in that moment, that's okay. And if you feel something else, next tomorrow, or 1 year down the line, or 2 years, that's okay. And I think we're so quick to hold people to their beliefs. We just don't give humanity a chance. I mean, so and so believed, was a Satan worshiper, 3 years ago. So that's just what they are. They'll never be anything different. They'll never believe anything different. I mean, come on. How many times have you believed something and you look back now and you're like, oh my God, I have no idea what I was thinking. We're all growing, we're all evolving here. We're all going to change our beliefs. Some may not. Um, but my point is that it's okay, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. I think there's a lot of shame around stepping out of what you once believed and deciding to believe in something else. And I think a lot of people hold their identity to what they once believed, that they're afraid to be someone else. We're moving into this time of transformation and stepping into your authenticity and being unapologetically, ourselves. But so many people are tied to their old beliefs, that they're scared to be something else, scared to believe in something else, and it's really holding people back. They're holding themselves back. They're holding the collective back. So I think we need to really talk more about like this whole belief thing, and make people feel that they're free to change their mind, and to you know believe in something different, because a lot of your beliefs is tied to your identity. And how are we going to grow as a collective? How are we going to move forward if we're afraid to think something different? you know do you have any thoughts on that?
I
I really got
have a lot
going
of thoughts on
for a minute.
I know. I know. I was just you have so many valid points. That's why I was like, let her go, let her go. She's channeling a message right here. Um, but no, I think this is what I feel. Whenever we go through some sort of spiritual awakening, we will either fight it or we will be like, let me surrender to it. And a lot of the times we will fight it because of that same reason. The fact that we believe in something so much that anything other than
Mhm.
disrupts our life, right? But then there comes a point where your soul, so the spiritual awakening is really your soul shaking you awake and being like, hey, there's more to life, and I'm activating you right now. So that's another thing with the whole hero's journey that we talked about earlier. That is that the hero's journey, like all of us will go through the hero's journey at very different times in our lives, because we will be awakened by our souls and activated by our souls at very different times in our lives, right? And that's only because your soul already knows what the plan is, but your soul also knows when you're ready for it, when your human ego self is ready for it, right? But anyway, so with regards to the beliefs, like our belief systems are so ingrained not just from this lifetime, but from ancestors and like just lifetimes of just the same programming. And that's why it's really hard to get to a point where people can actually say, oh, I can change my beliefs. Because, A, to your point, we are like, people judge other people for not believing the same things. There's a quote that says, I'm not the same person I was a year ago, much less an hour ago, because I given myself permission to evolve and grow and learn. And that's the thing. I think when I finally realized, and again, it took me a while to realize that I could change my beliefs, I could change my paradigm, I could change my mindset. It took a while to get to that point because I didn't realize and I didn't know that I had the power. And I think most of us don't change our beliefs or know that we can, because we don't realize that we have the power to change our beliefs. We
Mhm.
just have to say, okay, I'm ready to change. I'm ready to, to find other ways of doing things, because that shit wasn't working before. The scarcity mindset is not working,
Mhm.
right? The lack of self love is not working. The guilt, the shame is no longer working. The victim mentality is no longer working. But we don't realize we have the power to say, okay, I'm changing that. I'm changing that belief. And then also we don't sometimes know where to even begin. So I actually truly believe in a really good therapist, for one, to help heal wounds, um, that are really ingrained that you can't really see. I also believe in a really, really good spiritual coach, because I've had both for years, especially a spiritual coach, because that's where I started. But as far as tools of how to navigate this whole hero's journey and this whole spiritual awakening, it's like you really need a good support system
Yeah.
and surround yourself with people who understand
Yeah.
what you're going through, and people who are also in that mindset of, I can change my belief systems and I can change the things and reprogram
Yeah.
what I used to think was true, or reprogram all of the limiting beliefs, because without that support system you're always going to go back to the old way of thinking, because there's nothing anchoring you to the new way of thinking. Does that make sense? Like,
Perfect sense.
I
And,
think,
that's
yeah,
it right there. Support, it's
support.
really important to have people who support you, but also people that understand. And, I can't speak for other people, but definitely for me, I still feel like I'm in the process of shedding old beliefs and really stepping into my new beliefs and feeling empowered and being like, it's okay to believe something else. It's okay to change my mind. Um, my biggest struggle is, I think, what a lot of people struggle with. What are people going to think all of a sudden if I've gone my whole life one way and now I come out this way? It really feels like a coming out, you want to tell the
Yeah.
whole world, this is me, like I'm not the same person I was yesterday, or like
Yeah.
you said, a year ago or 5 days ago. And I feel like a lot of people feel this. It's like this intense need to come out, but you're scared, like, will people accept me? What will my family think?
Yeah.
What will my friends think? And it's almost like this, you're just hiding. It's this period of hiding. And slowly you kind of, you might put a foot out, or you might put a little bit out here and there, and you're kind of seeing like, well, how are people reacting? And I really, I can't speak for family. I'm still struggling with my family. But as far as the world, I'm learning it's really not that big of a deal. Um, I'm becoming more and more.
It's easier, right? It's easier to talk to strangers than it is your family.
Yeah.
Because I think the biggest reason for that is because the sad part is our families are the ones that will always put us in a box of who they knew us to be in the past.
Mhm.
They will never, or maybe not never, never say never, but they won't be the first people to say to you, "Oh, you've changed in a good way."
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? Like they will, because they always like they'll see you as whatever, the 12-year-old, or like, you know, I, this is this is actually a really good story. I was having dinner with my uncle,
Mhm.
um and we were having a conversation, and I was talking to him about the things that I talked to you, because I felt like he was open to it. And then he looked at me, he was like, "Ah, you're so different from the girl I used to know." And I'm like, "Well, I fucking hope so." I healed a lot of trauma. I changed my mindset and my paradigm. Like I literally went through hell and back. Like I fucking hope I'm a new fucking person. And I honestly, I got so triggered by that. I will say, I really got triggered by that conversation, because I wanted to be validated by the people around me, that people that have known me for years, to say that, you know what, yeah, you've changed for the better. But they're the last people to say that and to see that, because they already have something in their mind about you. They've already made their mind up about you. So that was a really like that was a big lesson. And how did I get through that lesson? How did I get through that trigger? It took me 3 days to get out of that trigger, because I went down a rabbit hole of, maybe I didn't change. Maybe I am the same person. Oh, maybe I didn't evolve enough, or I didn't learn enough, or I didn't integrate enough. And all these things, the little voices in your head are like, not the little voices, I'm not crazy. Your ego, and like what people call parasites, or what, my coach calls them the gremlins, the little voices in your head that will talk you out of the fact that no, you actually have changed. You have changed your belief systems. You have grown, and you have done the work that you needed to do to have actual meaningful change in your life. But again, people will trigger us into believing things, and we either allow it or we don't. And I allowed it at that moment. But then again, what tools did I use to get out of that? I actually stopped, took a deep breath, and really had to go back, and I actually had to journal about all of the things that I did go through, and all the wins, and all of the things that um, I overcame. So I had to remind myself. First, it was reminding myself that I overcame these things. That was one. Two, it was processing it. Again, having that support system, talking it through. I'm pretty sure I talked to you guys about it. Remember we had the Sacred Sister Collective reunion, and I did talk about this during that time. I
Mhm.
talked to my mom about it. My mom was really great support, because she understands the spiritual awakening. She understands the process. So she was my therapist, my spiritual coach. Like I have all these people around me, but I surround myself with people who can support me when I need support,
Mhm.
outside of outside of my soul, outside of my heart. And I think one of the reasons why we wanted to do this podcast was because we wanted people to feel like they could have a support system, to know that they're not the only ones going through what they're going through, and we understand that it is a process, and we will get triggered, and this hero's journey is actually a very, very hard journey to go through alone.
Mhm.
But you can do it, and there are so much support, and there's so many tools that you can use, and so many ways to navigate this journey.
Yeah.
But
It's so true. And, just touching on the alone thing, and, we were just talking about human design earlier and being a manifester. We're not great team players, and we don't like to involve other people in our stuff. Like, we're like, we got
I,
this. but really we're kind of hurting ourselves. I definitely see how I've hurt myself by trying to shut people out, especially when I'm going through a struggle or like a trial and tribulation. I just feel like, I don't want to involve anybody. Like, I do everything in my power to protect myself from having to let people on the outside in to what I'm dealing with, what I'm going through. But I've learned that there's just such a power. It's so healing to let people into your journey and to lift you up and to support you and to give you that understanding, that you need, because at the end of the day, I think we all just want to be seen, and we're all navigating and trying to figure out how to do that. It's so funny having an Instagram page. I have my page Gratitude 365, and I've been playing it safe for a long time. And very recently I've been, feeling pushed to be more creative, to be more me. And, just one day I like made a little video saying like, oh, there's changes coming to my page. And like, I'm just going to put it out there, and it's just so amazing, like the support that comes in, and it just really gives you that validation, like, oh, people do see me, because you think that you're just hiding behind your computer, nobody's paying attention to you. And not that I'm like seeking attention, but when you have a goal of making impact, but you're too scared to make that impact, you're just constantly in your head like, what do I do? And I think the people that want to connect the most have the most trouble connecting. I talk to many people who are like, oh, I want to make an impact and I want to connect, and are so afraid to put themselves out there, and that's been my story. Like, I want to connect, I want to get to know my audience, literally not knowing, just fighting myself. And it's actually hindering from doing the very thing that I'm wanting to do. So,
Are you open to processing that right now? Just to kind of, I don't know, I just feel like maybe this is a really good time to process that, because I feel like there's something there to process.
Mhm.
And I think you're at the cusp of it.
Why not?
Yes, let's do this. So this is sort of, okay, so guys, so this is sort of like what I say when I say process, of like when you become aware of a certain situation in your life, like what Jenna just mentioned, like, she's been playing it small because she wants to make an impact, right? You want to make an impact with your social media, which I think you are making an impact with your social media page, which, again, we don't see that because we're our biggest critic. But okay, let's process that for a second. So I guess the first question is probably the hardest one to answer. Why do you feel that you have to keep yourself small? Why do you feel that you can't speak your truth on your platform?
Yeah, I think a lot of it really just goes back to my childhood. I was, aside from just, I was always a very quiet kid, but very rebellious from the beginning. And I feel like I always tried to act out, and I was always told to shut up or to be quiet, or, I come from a military family, you're a lady, you quiet yourself. I wasn't allowed to be loud. I wasn't allowed to really speak my voice. I wasn't really allowed to have an opinion. And I feel like this is kind of me like trying to break through all of that. I have such a wall up. Like, I feel more uncomfortable being myself around my family than I do anything else. Like, if you really want to dig into it, I feel like I am a completely different person around my family than I am outside of that. And I'm definitely the type, like, once you get to know me, I really open up. You get 100% Jenna. But to people, I just have like a very protective wall up. And I think that also is very much the manifester way. We have this need for privacy. And it's a real difficult process for me to expose myself to, in the world of social media, where it's like, once you make that commitment to getting to know your audience, um once you make that commitment to getting to know your audience, then they have access to you. And I know that sounds so maybe a little bit backwards. Like I want to make an impact. I want to connect to you with you, but but I don't want you to get too close to me, you know? And that's just my own kind of makeup, you know, that's how I'm made. I really value my privacy. I really um I've never been drawn to people who let everyone into their life. I've never aspired to be a celebrity or to be famous, but I have aspired to be influential and to have impact, you know? So it's kind of this weird, and I'm curious like what your thoughts are on that, because I'm really trying to figure out, you know, I want to connect with people, but how do I do that where I still kind of have my space and protect my energy? Because being an empath, I think that's my biggest worry, is people really affect me. And
Yeah.
just being honest, I'm trying to figure out how do I, you know, put myself out there and expose myself to people and allow people to, you know, have that access to me and still like protect my well-being. You know, there's a lot of fear there. And then there's also just a lot of beliefs that I made up, like, you know, I've always been felt that I have to operate a certain way in public. You know, my family was very concerned about composure and how people view us. And I'm really kind of going through like a small phase of rebellion right now where I'm like, yeah, you know, I don't really care, but it's not like, bam, I'm here. I'm kind of slowly peeking out, you know, one day after the other. But that's where I'm at right now.
So I guess the other question is, so there's two things there, right? There's one is the family piece, but there's one that's your audience piece.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's something connected there. There's one fear, or maybe two fears. There's one or two fears that is connected to both of those things.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely pick up on that. When you say that, I can feel that there's something there. I think I'm still trying to
So
really put my finger on it myself. And I think
okay.
it's still just, it comes back to how people perceive me. You know, I think it really is just what are people going to think? And I
Yeah.
ask myself, well, why do I care? You
Yeah.
know, and I'm watching people, you know, right now we live in this time where you're literally watching people like just obliterate these fears, and you're seeing what it's doing to their lives. Like they're
Yeah.
hiding, they decided to step out and go for it, and bam, like they're taking off. And it's like we're
Yeah.
kind of we're watching people left and right like tackle their fears, and now look at them, tackle their fears, now look at them. And you know, I even look at myself, well, why can't I do that? And it just shows like how deep and how big the fear is. Knowing, especially seeing now, and I feel like the universe is trying to show me, like, you are, like you said, Patty, like, you know, I do believe that I'm making, you know, not a huge impact, but a small impact, you know, and that I do have people support. And even the other day, yesterday, maybe I made a video and I like put myself on there and, you know, made this message. I got more messages and than I ever, more interaction than I ever have, you know? So it's like people, it was that validation that people do want to connect with me and people do want to see me. Um, I think then it comes to the how. How do I really want to show up for my audience? Like, what does that look like? Um, and, you know, what is within my comfort zone? Because my biggest thing has been I don't like to be like everyone else. You know, again, that just goes back to part of my human design. Even if I didn't know about my human design, that's just who I am. You know, if everybody else is doing it, then I'm going to rebel against it. I don't like feeling conformed. I don't like feeling like I have to do something because someone else is doing it. Like everything has to pretty much be my idea. And I'm really struggling with this whole culture of social media. And eh, so I go back and forth. Well, how do I show up in my space where I'm not like running around in front of the
Yeah.
camera, pointing at like words as it's flying by? What is rules or whatever? I know I'm like grandma. but
Yeah.
that's not me, and maybe if I came up with it, that would be me. But because everybody's doing it, I'm like, I don't want to do it. It's just how I
Yeah.
am.
Yeah.
Whatever the fad is, whatever the trend is, Jenna's going to be like, no. So then I'm like, well, then how does Jenna show up? Because I feel like, we're living in this popularity contest. And look, I'm not trying to be popular. I'm just trying to get your attention and share my message. And I don't like feeling like I have to compete. So then instead of even going to do it, I'm just like, I'd rather sit on the benches. You know what I mean? But then I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm not fulfilling my purpose. So maybe I need to just show up like this. You know what I mean? Just turn on the camera and
Mhm.
share my message. And I don't have to dance around and point at words. Like everybody's pointing at words and dancing. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do it.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's fine. I think so. Here's the thing. Okay, so guys, um, you guys are still listening, right? So this is okay. So this might sound crazy, but this is a process, right? Like when you just heard Jenna, like she really went back and forth between her family, her audience, her, her fears. Like that's how the process works. So if you feel like when you're going through something like this and trying to understand why you do the things you do, that's actually amazing that you're so aware of the fact that there is something there and that there is something to process because there is something to be healed at that point, right? And then you go through what Jenna just went through, which is like a lot of back and forth. But I'm not saying that as a joke. I'm not saying that as a that shouldn't happen. That is actually what happens. You will go back and forth between one thing or the other. And here's right now, she was processing it through speaking. And I think that's sometimes that's the first step of doing it because then you actually acknowledge it that way. You activate your throat chakra and you actually acknowledge it through words that, okay, I need to process this. This is how I'm feeling right now. And then for me at least, the next process would be to actually write it down. And really all the things that you just went through as far as process, like
Mhm.
writing down, okay, how does this fit into my worries and my fears with my family? How does that connect with my fears with my audience and how I show up for them? Because at the end of the day, I'm not showing up as my truth to my family. So, how am I supposed to show up as my truth to my audience? Does that make sense?
Yeah, perfect.
And then you go through that whole process of, again, not really analyzing it, really tapping into how you truly feel about all that. Because when it all comes down to it, once you're at the end of that list, you're going to go, I've been doing everything for everybody else rather than for myself,
Mm.
ultimately, because your heart calls on you to make an impact. Your soul calls on you to make an impact, right? And whether you think you're making a small impact or a big impact, an impact is an impact. You are changing people's either lives or you're changing people's perspectives or planting seeds. And ultimately, we have all these fears about how we show up, about how people are going to think about us, all that stuff, because again, it stems back to how are we showing up in our lives with our own inner circle,
Yeah.
right? But it's also the fact that we're not listening to our soul voice, we're listening to everyone else. So I was talking to someone, a friend of mine, one day, and I was like, we were talking about it, and he was actually the one who said this, and I was like, yes. It was basically like I was like, you know what you have to do, you have to eliminate everyone else. And he goes, and illuminate yourself. And I go, yes,
Mm.
eliminate everything and everyone else and illuminate yourself. When you're trying to make an impact and trying to create your voice and your platform, forget everybody else. Forget about what you think your family's going to think, what this people are going to think. Ultimately, who's going to follow you is who's going to resonate with you. Similar to this conversation we're having in this podcast, whoever's going to resonate with us is intentionally, my intention is who's going to listen to us.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that are really going to understand. Because if you're listening to this and you don't understand anything that we're saying, I hope that maybe it'll plant a seed and like spark something. But if you truly don't get it, then it's okay. Like I'm okay with that because I'm not meant to activate you, right? We're I feel like we're meant to activate certain people and certain souls in this world, and we're meant to, I always say, like whenever I go into ritual or prayer, what is for my best and highest good, but what is also for the best and highest good of the souls that I meant to hold space for and commune with, because it's not every soul.
Right.
So, again, there's so much to the processing, but the idea is that we become aware of something that we need to heal or address. And then we go down the process of, okay, where did this come from? Why do I feel this way? It had to your point, it had to have been from childhood because a lot of our traumas and our belief systems and our programming came from when we were kids.
So true. But I mean, what you just said, that clicked for me, the eliminate everyone else and illuminate yourself, because I think I've been trying to like pick and
Shout
choose.
out to Ryan who said that if you're listening.
Yes, thank you.
Ryan, his name is Ryan.
You know, I've been having the struggle, exactly what you said. Like, I feel like I'm in this place where I can kind of start to show up and be authentic for myself, but also for my audience. But I'm like, I'm not quite there with my family just because
Yeah.
of the religious stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, I'm not even going to go there right now because it would hinder me more than
It's a whole nother, yeah.
me. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I've just been feeling like, well, if I can't be authentic there, well, then what's the point? But the
Yeah.
whole thing of eliminating everyone, meaning, let's not worry about my family. Like, let's not, when I say let's not worry about my audience, like, well, I'm not worried about you, but I'm trying, like I said in my post yesterday, I'm not here to teach you. I'm here to relate to you. And hopefully through relating to one another, we can learn from one another. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all I want to do. I've never aspired to be anybody's teacher, to be anybody's coach. I think that's great. I have a coach. I think everybody should have a coach. But I think what we need more than anything is someone to relate to us, which is why Patty and I are here, connecting with you in that
Yeah.
way. And this has been really empowering for me because it's really helped me to use my voice. And the more that I'm using my voice, the more that I wanted to do the same on my platform.
Yeah.
I knew that I wasn't going to be able to hide behind a quote page forever. Uh,
I actually really love when you do your videos and you do like your picture and then there's like a thing, because then people can actually know you're not a robot or like,
yeah,
a bot. Like you're an actual person that actually is grateful for all those things and actually, and I think, the more messages that you've been putting up that's outside of the gratitude, I think, at least this is how I process it too. It's like you're almost not convincing yourself that this is real. It's helping you integrate and embody more of it. So even this conversation we're having right now, whether it's recorded or not recorded, anytime we have a conversation, it's always a soul conversation because we're always learning from each other and like having these conversations of, let me process this with you. um it's really when we speak it, we start to integrate and embody it more. I always say this: whenever you see a quote, right, there might be something about that quote that you resonate with and you're like, yes, I love this quote, let me post it. But you have to think about that quote and say, at what point did I apply that quote in my life? Because a lot of the times we say a quote, we put it up, we don't apply that quote at all into our lives. It's just words on a screen at that point. But it's when we start to applying those words into our life and into our daily practices and our daily rituals, is then when we start to integrate it, and then we start to embody it, and then we're actually living that quote,
yeah.
right? So
I say
I,
post page, but I'm like, well, I don't know what you call it. I just mean my page is not me. It's like words because everything that I write comes from me. Like I'm not taking from anybody, but
yeah,
still,
yeah,
like,
no, it's
still,
channeled. It's all channeled.
feel like it's still not me, even though it's my words. I'm not, like you said.
Yeah.
I feel like people need to see you and experience you to connect with you. Although, I definitely feel like I've connected with people's pages where I have no idea who they are because
Yeah.
the words really set my soul on fire
Resonate.
or something. Yeah. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
It was meant to activate you. But also I feel like maybe like you are speaking your truth with the 365 brave, you are speaking your truth on your account and your platform, but maybe you feel like you haven't been able to fully express yourself like
that's
to
it.
100% capacity. It might be 50% because again there's still all those beliefs and all those fears that you have to allow yourself the full expression of yourself. But that's again the process that we have to do on a day to day. And it's okay because it's, we talked about unlearning and relearning. It's all about soul evolution. And that's what this process is all about. It's all about evolving. And we show up in this world as this person today, but that's not really who our true expression is, or that's maybe 5% of us, our true expression. And then the idea is to be able to unlearn things, to be able to create new belief systems, to create new mindsets and paradigm shifts within ourselves, and again evolve and grow and learn and like all these things. I thought in my 20s learning ended when I finished college. So my whole 20s was all about me having fun, until I realized there was more to this world and this earth and this universe than all of the things that I knew. And from that time on, I've been learning so much. And in the last few years, I've been really learning so much because, again, a new level of spiritual awakening where you're like, okay, I'm ready for the next level of whatever this is, right?
Yeah.
But it's okay to feel like you're not expressing yourself fully now because you're so aware of it and you're still learning. And I feel the same way. I feel like I'm not fully who I am yet. I haven't fully evolved into becoming that woman, but I know I'm getting there. It's a process. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So
Like,
it's funny.
happen overnight.
You talk about human design. When you
Um,
talk about human design, I'm also learning about my human design, and I'm a generating manifester. Oh, sorry, no, so I'm not. I'm a generator. My bad. Generator, and generating manifester are similar, but I'm a generator. And what they say is a manifester is um, a sprint runner, meaning you're like there, and generators are more like marathon runners. It takes us longer.
yeah.
And we just talked about how like it took me 3 years to get out of my dark night, like, but that's also again because I was not fully living my truth and living the full expression of who I am. And again, I'm still learning who I am. And there are things that I want to unlearn
Yeah.
because it's really not who I am. It's who, it's what I learned, right?
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing you say because you said with manifestors we're running a sprint. And
Yeah.
I definitely feel like when I was living like this oblivious life, pre-awakening, life was like that. I just was like, bam, no hesitation, no hesitation, make a decision. I didn't care what people thought of me. Jenna lived her life. She did what she wanted, had all the confidence in the world. Um, Mind you, I had a karmic relationship that I came out just not knowing who the hell I was, where then I woke up. And I feel like since my spiritual awakening, it's like this, I don't know, like I'm in this weird place of, remembrance, discovery, reunion, whatever you want to call it. And
All of the above.
yeah, and I just operate so differently now. I feel like I definitely linger on things and I hesitate and I take my time. I feel like I'm still working from my authority. Like I initiate things all the time. It's just like following through on them, which is also classic manifester. Um, yeah, so that's kind of like the thing that really irks me. I'm like, why can't I just, why can't I just be how I used to be, but not be how I used to be? You know what I mean? Like, why can't I be how I used to be, but not? Um, but I know I don't want to operate from a place of my old self.
Again, let's go back to basics, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm, anyway,
But all right. I think I don't we went deep today. I think we went deep and like just an FYI, this episode was called What Now? And what now was not meant to confuse anyone. What now is just kind of means that, you know, this journey is a constant evolution of self. And we are going to be constantly having to readjust, reassess, and work through and process through a lot of things. But the good news is like there's so much more joy and happiness and freedom from when you or when we come out of feeling the need for other people's opinions to matter to us, for feeling the need of constant um you're doing great, because at the end of the day it's really you and your soul, and if your soul says you're doing great, then you're doing great.
exactly.
And if you feel you're doing great, you're doing great. And it's really about, again, finding joy and happiness in everything that we do, minus the trauma, minus the hurt, minus the pain, minus the programming, right?
Yeah.
Um, but
And,
yeah,
I can say,
but
like,
we're really just happy that you're listening to us.
yes, thank you for tuning in and being here. This episode didn't go exactly how we planned, but sometimes we just want to have a soul conversation, and we're so happy that you're here for it. So we will continue with our plan.
Exactly. I didn't even realize we were recording.
Jenna likes to do it like
also also it's Mercury retrograde, so if you find us kind of like talking over each other, it's not that we are, it's that my computer screen is literally like it I don't know what it does. It's like it freezes, so I think she's done talking and I'll say something and then like it overlaps. So
yeah, you've been frozen like
just so everyone understands, what date is it today? It is February 19th, 2021 when we're recording this. We are in the throes of Mercury retrograde. Um, I didn't even realize Jenna was recording yet again because we were having a conversation when she pressed record. And again, we always have these conversations. So every so often we'll be like, oh, we should have recorded that because that actually makes sense. And someone needs to hear that. So I don't even know what I'm saying right now. But we're just so happy that you stayed
thank
with us
you.
until episode 4. And if this is actually the first episode that you're hearing from us, listen to the first 3 and you'll kind of get an understanding. We do promise to have we did say we were going to have some wild card conversations on here just because sometimes spirit just wants to kind of channel and give a message. So this is actually a really good one. I actually had fun with this because it wasn't so structured. I don't like structure
Me?
at all. I don't think we do.
Well,
Well, sometimes we do. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we like structure, but today we like that it was just a flow and whatever comes out because it's soul versus us. It's a soul conversation after all. Um, but we do promise that there are a lot of episodes coming up that are really going to be curated, and feel free to message us and let us know what you want to hear. If there's anything that we said throughout that you're kind of like, I want to know more about that, definitely let us know. We'll explain more. We'll have more information. And again, feel free to reach out to us at any point on our have a soul conversation with us. I actually have been having soul conversations with people just randomly, and I've been loving all of them. I literally am like, hey, can we have a soul conversation? And we'll go on Zoom like this and we'll have a conversation. And I've had like 5 of them in the last 3 weeks.
I love that.
And they've been amazing. I love it. I love soul conversations.
So do I.
But
So
anyway, we are very grateful that you guys are listening in, and please tune in some more. Share if if you had anything get triggered or spark something from our conversation, and we hope you come back and listen to us some more.
absolutely. So thank you so much. We love you and we appreciate you. Uh-oh, Patty's frozen. So I will finish off on her line.
Yes, we love you.
Love and
Oh, no, so are you. All right. Bye, guys.
bye.
Mwah.